Hi everyone, welcome to the latest webinar for the release of Schoolbox 16.5 now. It's going to be a big one today, so I'm going to be pretty quick and try and get through as much as possible. Just to give you a quick rundown of what we intend to cover today. Firstly, I'm going to go over some broad system changes in terms of the actual updates that you can expect to see across the broad system. Then I'm going to look at it from an admin perspective and the types of things you need to know as a system admin. Following that, we're going to look through the user changes and what things you can expect to see in the user changes from a user's perspective, teachers and students. And then finally, we're going to have a Q&A session. So please hang around to the very end for Q&A. We are going to have a bit of a session where we can answer any of your questions that come up during the session. But firstly, I've got a bit of a quick poll for you. I'd like to first ask you, what are you excited about in this release? What is it that you're looking forward to the most? What features do you think are the most interesting? I've got a couple there. You've probably already seen a bit about them in our release notes. So let me know what you think is the most important thing in that list. Following on while you're doing that, and I'll just keep talking. So firstly, I want to thank all our customers for coming today and for all your feedback that has made this release possible. All of these features that you're voting on now are all obviously driven by requests from you, our customers. So we thank you very much for all the feedback and information you've given us about what's important to you and what you're looking forward to and what you want us to go ahead and develop. Secondly, I want to thank all the developers. They're sitting in the other room now watching. They put in a lot of late nights to get us here, so I'm very proud of what they've put together and the features that they've given us. So I want to thank them. And then secondly, the testers who have gone through the system and made sure everything's working and are still going through the system during this beta period, making sure that everything's as reliable and as stable as possible. So thank you to all those people that have participated. You're very much appreciated. Next, I'm going to talk quickly about the process by which we're actually going to be rolling out Schoolbox so everyone's aware of what's going to happen. So right now, we've got a release candidate available, and that can be installed on your development servers, your test servers right now. So if you want to try out anything in this, feel free to ask support to have that installed. Some of you have already got that installed, so good work on getting on that straight away. This really is an opportunity for you to see, before we've really finalized everything, before we've really fixed all the bugs, it's an opportunity for you to actually see the new features in action and get a bit of a time to sort of work out what that change will be for your school. So it's really important for us to make sure that you've got some time before the actual release to get comfortable with all the changes that this release will bring with it. So this period generally goes for approximately 1 month, but as always, it will only be go live when we're ready. So when we actually have all the issues that we know about resolved, we will actually go live, and we'll let you know as soon as that is. At this stage, it's looking around Christmas time, so that's going to be an exciting Christmas present for everyone. So sometime around then, I would expect it, but it does depend on what happens during this testing period and what comes up during that period. So don't expect it on Christmas Day, but it'll be sometime around that time. Following that, obviously we know that most of you will be on holidays at this time of year, so we're not expecting everyone to upgrade straight away. So we expect to see schools starting to plan the upgrade when they come back, and we'll expect to be doing upgrades over sort of term 1 into the term 1 break as well. But that's really your choice. Remember that you choose when you want your live server upgraded. Unless you're in the cloud environment, that will automatically be updated, but for those that are on site, you can actually choose when you want that upgraded. For those customers who are using our cloud-based Schoolbox, everything's taken care of for you. You'll be automatically updated, and all of that will be handled. We'll be communicating the exact date of that closer to when we know when we're going to be upgrading the cloud customers. So we'll let you know when that is. And if you've got any issues, let us know through feedback on that update schedule for the cloud as well. Just one other thing before I get straight into the demo. I want to quickly talk about what it is that we are going to be doing this time to support you through the change. We got a lot of feedback on the last update, especially the one to the responsive interface, that the change was quite significant and quite difficult to handle. And we don't want to obviously have that experience again, so we're going to be pulling out all stops to ensure that you're supported through the change of this release. So things that we learned in the last release cycle, such as developing a list of changes to communicate to teachers so that you'll have a document that you can show to teachers about what changes that will affect them that are in the system. We're also going to be developing a change management guide for IT so that you can implement a change process around the update, looking at what things you need to be aware of, what checklists, things that you need to take care of before doing the update, so you can work through in a structured way and make sure that you've got all the bases covered before the update happens. Because it's really important with any change, of course, that we make sure that we I guess ensure that our customers, our users, feel supported throughout that change. And so we want to make sure you're supported, but also the teachers on the other end are also feeling supported. All right, so let's now close that poll off, and we'll move now into the actual demonstration of the updates. So let me just switch now to the latest 16.5 update. So this has been a big update for us. I have almost 2 pages of notes here that I'm going to need to go through, so bear with me. I'm going to try and cover it all fairly quickly. We'll have questions at the end, so if there's anything you want to know more about or in more detail, just ask the question at the end. I'll go through it in more detail at the end. But during this time, I'm just going to be pretty quick, just to show you the highlights and what's there, and I'll discuss more about the why and what we were thinking in the question and answer time if you've got questions on certain topics. Okay, so let's start with the system changes. Firstly, behind the scenes, there's been a fair bit of work done to your system to try and, I guess, improve the performance, improve the running of the system. We've updated the database. We used to use MySQL as the backend database. It's now using MariaDB, and we've also, with that, switched the entire all the tables in the system to InnoDB. I know that's a lot of geek talk, but behind all of that, some of the key features that will, I guess, for the end user to know about is that it's going to hopefully improve our search results because there's better text searching in InnoDB. For those that are accessing the database directly, there's going to be full ACID compliance. So that's going to ensure that the database stays consistent even if you're accessing it without using our application. So if you're doing reports or accessing the data directly, not going through our application, we can ensure that the database is still consistent and you'll see it in a way that makes sense as well. So that's important from your perspective. We do plan to upgrade the servers to the latest Ubuntu and PHP 7 early next year. So we're already starting the work on that to get ready for that. So we'll be most likely with the next release supporting PHP 7 and the latest Ubuntu, and that'll be available. We expect with PHP 7 a big performance improvement, up to 20–30% in some cases. So we're looking forward to that upgrade. Finally, with IE9 support. IE9 support is deprecated in this release. It's still functioning, but we're no longer actively supporting IE9. So there's some remnants left over of when we did support IE9, and more or less it should work. But if you're still using IE9, I definitely recommend over the Christmas break to get rid of any last instances of it. We won't be supporting IE9 in the next release. In fact, we'll be pulling out all the IE9 support. So just so everyone's clear that the old Internet Explorer from back in the Windows XP days, that's going to be retired for this next release. Okay, so now moving on to the user interface and what we've done with changes to the user interface. So firstly, you can see here that some of the fonts have been improved. We've tightened up the sizing, the design, just some general tweaks around the edges of the fonts. Specifically here, we're using the Mac system font. So that gives us the best look on the Mac. On Windows, we use the Windows system font. On Android and iOS, we also use their system fonts. We found that's the best possible way to do fonts, most clear to use the actual device's native fonts, and most comfortable for the users. So you'll find that throughout the system, and also improvements on the sizing of everything. Okay, so now let's move on to the new components on the home pages. So let's have a look at what the latest home pages look like. So one of the things that we've done in the homepage space is we've actually removed all of those buttons that used to be on the home pages. So previously you would have found a lot of different buttons showing. So you'll see here we've got the modify, the delete has been shrunk down into a very simple text link. They're still all there, but they're much simpler. And we did that so that we could get the content to be the main thing on the page and the buttons become less prominent. The other change you'll notice here is there's now empty states on these components. We're going to be using the empty states to help users understand what this component should be used for, how to use it, what they need to do next to get started with that particular component. Gone are the days of just having an empty box with a button. We want to actually explain what this is for, what the next steps are, and various components are going to have even more detailed help text in there. The more complex components will certainly have more help available for you. We've also added in new loading animations. So when you go to a page that has a loading, there's some new loading animations there just to keep up to date with modern trends. We also have new error states. So if I were to generate an error here, let's say I go to a page that I'm not allowed to access. Homepage, one squillion. We now have nicer error messages, 404s, with obviously your reasons, your options, things like that. So all the errors have been cleaned up, made much more presentable. Hopefully you won't get too many errors in the system, but if you do, they should be a bit more presentable now, a bit more clean and simple. Okay, let's move now on to the next section. So we go into the admin system now, and the admin system is where we're going to talk about, I guess, all the things that an admin user needs to know. So let's go through to the administrative system. So there's quite a few changes for admins. So firstly, one of the often requested features, specifically by executive, and it's always important to look after your executive users, is the ability to override titles. So now for every user in the system, you can actually set their title. You can use the title for their position, you could use it as what they do at the school. It's up to you how you use that title. It can be populated from the user provisioning system, so you can bring that data in from your sys and populate it automatically, or you can just type it in and edit it directly in the system. Here I've made Miss Rebecca White have the position title of Head of Teaching and Learning. That now means that whenever I see Rebecca White in the system, rather than just seeing Rebecca White Teacher, I now see that she's Head of Teaching and Learning. So there's custom titles that you can now apply across the system wherever you see that user. So whether it's in the members component on a home page, or whether it's when they're posting in the forum, whatever that action might be where we display their role, you can now override that with a title instead. This can also be used to change the students' titles, for example. If you want to have unique titles for students, you can do it for students just as well as you can for staff as well. So that option to override all of those is there for everyone. Okay, Let's look at some of the new dashboard components now. So one of the new features that we've brought into the system, we've got a few new dashboard components that come with them. Firstly, sports fixtures. With the new sports fixtures system, there's now a dashboard component. This will show all of the games upcoming that you're currently enrolled in or set up to be in sports fixtures. So this is like your upcoming game list. It's a personalized fixture just for you, so it will show you just the games that you're sort of set up to view. Okay, so the next two components that are new here, we have my classes and my groups. Now these two components here, my classes and my groups, allow you to put tile-based graphics of your groups and your classes onto the page. Now I've already added it here to my middle school dashboard, so I've added my classes and my groups to my middle school students. So now when I log in as those middle school students, I now get a dashboard that includes those icons on their dashboard. So we can see here we have my classes, and you can actually see that these can be customized with icons and images. So I can see all of my classes from here and get quick access to things like my grades and everything else that I might need as a student for my classes. These are all configurable, these little tiles here, so the teacher can configure the tile, put their own image on, and of course we wouldn't leave it without doing groups as well. So if you've got extensive group systems, you can also do the exact same functionality with the groups, so you can set up icons for each of your groups that the users are involved in, and they can see all of that information through here. Okay, let's go back now to the admin system. Can't do that if I'm still the student. Okay, so next up, let's go to the, let's get my notes right. Let's go to the side navigation. So over here on the left-hand side here, we have the side navigation system. And previously this could be customized, but you'd need to put in a support request to have that customization done. Now through the admin system, you have complete control, not just of the menu items in the side navigation, but also the sections that show. So you can quickly and easily rename these links. You'll also notice the new pop-up saved notification down here. And of course, we can hide things that you don't want. So if you don't want group showing, we can hide that. If you don't want subject showing, we can hide that as well. So you can customize this navigation to how you want and set it up however you want. Now, if I refresh this page, you'll now see that it's been renamed to link stuff. And these little drag handles allow us to resequence it, by the way. So if you want to put my links above those for whatever reason, you can reorder and resequence the order with which these items and sections show on the side navigation as well. Next up, we've got the top menu. So along the top menu here, we've got a series of icons, and these have always been, once again, customizable on request through our support. But now we wanted to open them up so you can actually have them, you can customize them yourself. Same thing with the sequencing. You can sequence the order of all of the icons in whatever sequence you want, whatever priority you choose for these icons. You can also control the titles, the text, the icons that are being used. All of our icons are available here for selection, so you can choose which icon you want to use, put in your own URLs, change the destination target, and this is pretty important, we can now control the visibility of each of these items. So you can turn off an icon for parents, for example, or turn it on for just teachers in the senior school. So you get to choose now your visibility of each of those icons and control them each individually. So for example, we often get a lot of requests for disabling the resources link for certain types of users. So here I've set up the resources link so that it's available only to admin and teachers, and students and parents will no longer see the resources link. So all of that's now available. If you want to link to third-party systems, you can put those URLs in there as well. Open it in a new window so you can link up your OneDrive, your Google, all of those different tools can be linked up. I think we put those icons in there for you. Office 365 is in there, so you can use that. So go for it, set them all up and link them up through your top nav as well if you choose. Okay, so next up, let's go to LTI. So coming on this menu now, there's a new item in here called LTI. The LTI section allows us to add third-party providers into the system. So this is sort of like a single sign-on tool for third parties, and there's quite a few LTI tools out there that you can plug in. And they work in some different ways, but I'll sort of talk you through quickly how they work. So first off, if you want to find some good LTI apps, there's this eduapps.org website, and this will have a whole lot of different apps that you can pick up and use in Schoolbox. Now, we've gone through and tested some of these. Some of them don't work, some of them do. Some of them do weird things. So you'll just have to sort of test them out yourselves depending on and find out what does and doesn't work. It's not a surefire solution that all of these are going to work, but there's a lot in here that you can go through and check out in your own time. I'm just going to pick up one just as an example here, a really simple one perhaps. Find one. Got Learning Field already. Got to find one that I know works. ChemVantage. I know that one works. So I click into ChemVantage here, and it gives me a bit of information about what ChemVantage is, and it tells me about this configuration URL that I need. So I copy that URL, and then I click Add Provider, install this ChemVantage configuration URL. Now, the consumer key and consumer secret are optional in this case. So this service works without any keys. So it's sort of a free service, I guess, and doesn't require any special account or anything like that to work. And then I just click Create Provider. And that's all set up and done. So that's a new service that's available. Teachers will be able to go onto their class pages now and add that ChemVantage tool into their page and use that tool. I've also got the learning field here as an example. This one's a bit different in that it does actually contain a key, so you can actually get access to that service. So you'll be able to I guess, sign up to that service and get access to the Learning Field textbooks and embed them within Schoolbox as well. So look out for that service. Shout out to Learning Field for helping us with this development and testing it with us. They've been great support. So there's the Learning Field application. If you wanted to add that in now, you can do that via the LTI connection. Let's have a look at, while I'm doing this, at LTI on an actual page and how that component will actually work. So under Multimedia, there's a new tool called Embed Learning Tool. And dragging this onto the page, it gets added in and it asks me which tool do I want to use. And so as you add more, it's going to have more options there. You get to choose which ones you want to have. If I'm doing the Learning Field one, for example, just sets it up. This is going to securely log me into the Learning Field service. It's also sending to Learning Field some information about the page that I'm embedding this service into. The nice thing about that is that it sort of saves the state of this for this page. So whenever someone comes back to this page, they're seeing the information that's been stored in this LTI component for this page. So if students come to this page, they're going to see the books, in this case, that I've selected for them to see. So we've got this relationship now between the page and the LTI component. So I can search for a science book. And I adopt that book, and that's now been added into my book holder, and any students that come to this page will now have access to that book, so that book has been added as an item for this page to access. So it's a great way to embed third-party resources into your page. That's just one quick example of how LTI can be used. All right, let's go back onto the admin system and see what else we've got left to do. So one of the other services that we've got in Schoolbox is the boarding leave system, and it has missed out on having a home page, really, and so it's never really had a page where you can see what's going on in border leave. So with this update, we've added in a new landing page. So the new landing page for border leave gives you information about who's going away today, who's coming back today, the catering report. You can see how many students are away or in each house, and how many requests for leave are pending or approved for each house. So a little bit of a quick dashboard to give you an overview of what's happening in the boarding house system. All right, next let's move on to fixtures. Now, I'm keeping the fixtures demo in the admin section just because really the person who's going to be using this is going to be the sports admin. It's going to be managed and maintained by the head coach or the sports admin. They're going to be the one interacting with this system. The parents and students are going to be sort of not so much interacting with it directly through here. They're going to be getting it through either notifications, mobile push notifications, or via their components on their pages. But I wanted to talk a bit quickly about how the sports admin would use this system and how it works. So firstly, this is the fixtures dashboard. We can see we've got an area to set up the different sports, the venues, the external schools, and the different match statuses. So I'll just talk through each of these. Venues is pretty obvious. It's going to be a list of all the grounds and ovals that you play at. The thing about this is that when you enter in those addresses, we do Google Maps lookups, and we can actually locate that particular venue on a Google map. You can drop a marker on there, identifying exactly where it is, so that when students go to see that they have to play at that ground, they'll be able to find it on the Google map, and they'll be able to be given directions as well, thanks to the Google functionality. External schools is just the schools that you'll be playing against. And then match status is the potential statuses that a game can have. Now we've got win, loss, draw, cancelled here, but you could have washouts, you could have delayed, you could have all sorts of different statuses that you choose. And these are just, results for games. Like at the end of a game, what's the result? Was it cancelled? Was it a win? Was it a loss, draw? You can define all of those different statuses. With the sports seasons, we have these, set up as basically any type of date range that you want. You can set up different seasons, and the divisions are populated per season. So each division goes into a season, and all the users are put in for that season, and they get matched up to teams. And then next season, you start all again. So we've got the understanding of seasons, and you can have different seasons, overlapping seasons, just as long as your sports are defaulting to, or divisions are defaulting to a particular season. That's how they all link up in the end. Let's have a look at imports now. Obviously, a lot of this data we found is probably already existing in the school, and it's probably something you already have in spreadsheets or a whole lot of different sources around the place. It might even be coming from a central body that does the fixture planning for everyone, and so you just want to be able to upload that data. So these CSV templates allow you to quickly upload all of the data into the system. There's different templates for different purposes, but fundamentally you can just drag and drop your templates, and the system will bulk load all of that data into the system. Looking at the sports area now, and we're sort of still not sure what to call this. Sports is what we've come up with now, but this could be used for anything. It could be used for chess, debating, music performances, anything that has a fixture could be represented in here. So it's not necessarily just linked up to, I guess, the standard items. So let's go into basketball here. Now, inside basketball, there's a series of divisions. So you can have your year 9s, your year 10s, your first, your seconds, your opens, whatever your divisions might be, that's the first layer. Within each division, you then have a series of teams. And so each division has a team in it, or multiple teams. So you might have year 9 tennis, and then team A, team B, and team C. And then we manage the users that are in each team. So this is all just a drag and drop interface. So I can just pick up my students and move them into the appropriate teams and populate out those teams. So it's very quick and easy to manage the team. Now, if at any time during the season you need to make changes, you can just come in here and drag and drop someone into a different team. We also have the ability to do positions. So you can assign positions to people as well, so they know where they're playing on the day. So you can set up all of that information as well. Depends how much detail you want to put into your team planning. Next up, we've got a fixture. So for each division, there is a fixture. And here we can see the teams and who they're going to be playing each week. If we go into this, we can actually see the game page, and the game page includes a oval and ground that we're playing at. It can optionally contain a result. This is the first match. If this game's concluded, you can update the status. So now I can say, yep, we won, terrific, win, stars. Great. So there we go. I've now created the result. So for that game, we won, and there's a report in there lodged for that particular game. Now, with the results, you can actually have that being entered by any number of people, not just obviously the head coach, but that could be done by the coach of the team. It could also be done by the captain of the team, so you can nominate students to do those results as well. So there's a lot of options there with how you gather the results. And of course, all of this has been hooked into the notification system. So before the game, we send a notification saying this is where you've got to go to play. And then after the game, when the results are entered, we then notify everyone, here's the result and here's a report of that result as well. Okay, so I think that about wraps up my demo for sports. I'll now move on to a few of the changes that are impacting on users and have a look at what users can expect to see differently about the system. Let's start as Mr. Jack Coles here as a teacher and log in as teacher. Okay, so generally not much changed here from the last release. One of the new features available, we mentioned before, there's now the ability to have a classes page. Now, the classes page is sort of our index for all of our classes, and it's a good way to sort of link up all the classes. And of course here, now you can see the tiles in their full glory in a full screen. And as a teacher, I'm actually able to modify these and update them and put my own images in, so I can actually attach new images to this area. Let's try and find a nice appropriate image. For my class. And so it's as simple as that for the teacher to start updating the icons that are appearing on their tiles for their classes, and that will then push out to the students. So where the students are using these tile interfaces, they'll get those nice pretty icons as well. So each teacher can customize their icons and set up nice pretty images for each of their classes. So really here with this new interface, you can choose how you want your classes to be represented. You've got sort of three main options now. You can have your classes listed down in the side navigation, you can have them on the dashboard, or you can have them as a top nav button, which takes you to a dedicated page. So the choice is really yours about how you want to set up these tiles and how you want to use them. So if you think they're wonderful and you want everyone to use them, you might put them on the dashboards. If you think that they're good but you want them to be available underneath a top nav, that's fine as well. And if you still want the left-hand navigation, you can leave them in there as well. So it's really up to you what type of navigation system you want for accessing your classes. You'll also see from here the teachers have got quick access to all of the features of that class. So the class list, the mark book, so all the things that they'll need to access for that class are just one click away, so they can quickly get to all of those. And the same thing happens if you put this on their dashboard. If you put these on their dashboard, they'll still have these quick links directly to the mark book for that class from their dashboard, making it even quicker for them to get to the class LMS functions. Okay, so with this, we also have added a variant for groups. So this page has a similar version for groups. I'm going to take a guess, and no, there we go. My groups is available as well. So you can put that as a top nav element as well if you wanted to. So for each user, they can have a full My Groups page. Now, this was all great, and we really love this tiles idea and making it really easy for teachers to build tiles. And so this idea we thought would be great for use on the home pages as well. So this is now part of the home pages. So for example, if I'm looking at what's a good space to do this in? Let's go to my French course. Okay. So in Year 9 French, there's 4 units. Units 1, 2, 3, and 4. And inside here, while I'm here, I should point out some other changes. This is quite convenient. You can now see that we've indicated that you can drag multiple files into this location. A lot of people pointed out to us it wasn't entirely obvious that you could do this, so that's now improved. It's now obvious you can drag files there. Also note the homepage link. For those that could never find the link to the homepage, there's now a direct button there to make it easy to find. Now you see here we've got tiles to each of the unit pages, and this is great, it looks amazing, but it's quite difficult to set up. It's quite time consuming, and teachers need a lot of skill and need to learn a lot to actually be able to create those beautiful tiles. So now with the new component in here, the good old folders component, and if you remember the old folders component, it's pretty boring. It was just unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, unit 4, and of course these tiles looked much better, but now you've got the ability to switch to a grid view and update those. You can now have each of your units as a gridded tile, and from here I can start adding images to each of these tiles. And of course, as I add new folders, we're dynamically creating new tiles automatically. So we don't need to manually set up the tiles component and link to all the subfolders. It will automatically do that work for us. So much nicer, much quicker way to build your course pages when you've got those tiles being built for you by the folders component. So the grid view for the folders component, remember that one. I'm sure it's going to be very popular. Okay, so let's have a look now at some of the changes within the assessment system for teachers. Now, there's been quite significant changes here, and there's a couple of reasons for changing this. One, we wanted to improve the workflow, and 2, we wanted to add more functionality. And so we went back to the drawing board with a lot of the learning management system features, and we've gone about looking at how we could actually improve the system. So the first area that we noted that got probably the most work was the assessments tab. Now, previously this is called list assessments, and all it did was simply show a list of assessments. So we just got every assessment ever created, all listed, and it didn't really tell us anything about what was going on, where we needed to focus our attention. The new system has been designed to only show us the things that we need to know about. So the things that are currently pending us as a teacher to actually undertake an action. And so those are clearly things where students have submitted something and we need to review it, or students haven't submitted something and we need to chase them up. So they're the two actions that this page now facilitates, and it does that by highlighting the assessments that I need to chase. So here we go, requires assessment, practice essay here. The progress bar here shows how many students have actually submitted this work. So we can see here that about 70% of the class have actually submitted this work. It's actually 3 out of 3. And then this bar here shows me how many I've actually marked. So if we look down here, some of these I've actually marked already, and an additional student has actually submitted into that. So we can see that there's more for me to mark now than there was originally. Additionally to this, these actually are able to be dropped down. So what this does is that in this particular task here, several students have submitted and I've already reviewed it and it's fine, but this additional student has now submitted and I haven't reviewed them yet. So it shows me exactly which students have submitted that I haven't yet looked at. So that will be obviously dependent on what the task is. There'll be different amounts of students for different things. And so I can quickly see, oh, I see now Tim's handed that work in. I can go and look at his assessment now. Going right down the very bottom, no, there's lots of tasks here. Not that far down. Down here we have the list of not submitted. Now, these are the ones where students actually haven't handed in the work on time. So these are students I need to follow up with. And of course, because I need to follow up with them, there's an email all button. So there's an action there, so you can actually contact those students with an email and say, why haven't you done this work yet? What's happening? So here we're highlighting exactly which students have yet to do the work that has been required of them. So once again, that action that you need to take is highlighted. So the two actions, not submitted and not and a pending assessment, are sitting there waiting for you to review. And as you review these, this list will close. Obviously, I haven't done much marking recently, so I've got a whole lot of stuff open. But once you start reviewing and following students up, getting them to hand their work in, all of these will disappear. So it'll only show you things that are currently active. Okay, one more thing to look at, going in a bit deeper. Here we have Yana Reed has submitted this 42 minutes ago, so there's a persuasive article and she submitted a response to that. By clicking on this, I can actually go to what she submitted, and she submitted a lovely photo of William Shakespeare, and I can then grade and assess. So this screen here, we know it as the inline grader, has been updated, and so I can say, thanks for this, but I really need an essay. And you'll note here that while I'm typing, it's actually saving a draft. And what's happening here is that in the past, teachers have said to us, oh, I was typing in, but I lost what I was doing for whatever reason. So what we're doing here is auto-saving it in the background, saving it as a draft. We don't want to send this straight to the student, right? The teacher hasn't confirmed that they're finished yet. They might want to do more work. They might want to do more things to it. But we don't want to lose this at the same time. So while I'm typing, it's actually actively saving drafts. And then once I'm finished as a teacher and I've completed my marking, I then click Publish and Continue, and it takes me on to view the next student's work. Okay. Obviously, the screen where we used to be able to, what we call quick mark, where we could mark all of the students' work in one screen, is still there as well. This screen is really useful if you're not not receiving submissions, because you can do all your marking directly from here. So you can fill all this out automatically. And similar to the pending assessments screen, one of the things that teachers always say is we only want to see the things that are relevant. So if I'm actually looking for what I need to mark, I can just filter this down to just the things that are requiring action. So at the moment, I've got nothing that requires action. If I want to see which students have completed the task, there's Yana Reed, she's completed it, and there's my mark. And if I want to see who hasn't attempted it yet, I can see that filter as well. So this is all now filterable, so you can actually see exactly what students are remaining left to do, clean out so that you can actually get to the task at hand for this particular assessment. Along with this screen here, this screen now applies to tasks and quizzes as well. So you'll have all the same functionality for tasks and quizzes. So all of this is available for both of those in the same system. As well as some of these features have always been here, but we wanted to make it a bit clearer now. So here's where I can see the student's work. Here's where I can see the submission history, and here's where I can submit for the student on the student's behalf. Now, if we're looking at Yana here, I actually can look at her submission history and see what she sees now. So there's been a change to this page. This page used to have the submission history hidden away. Now we can clearly see that Yana Reed submitted this with this file attached, and there's my comment in line with the actual submission. So what we found was that previously the submission history was just a timeline. Now we've got the ability to actually respond in line. It works more like the social stream. So for those that are familiar with how the social stream works, it's sort of a threaded discussion. Well, now you can have the same threaded discussion within a submission box. So students can submit something, you can respond to it, they can submit something else, you can respond to that. So you can have a sort of threaded discussion around what the student is handing in. This is great for having multiple files being submitted over time or developing over time. Okay, so let's now have a look at projects. So I think projects was one of the big things, probably the second biggest thing in the poll that everyone voted for. So let's have a look at how those projects work, and let's go and create an actual project. I'm going to use 9A English here. I'm going to create a project in 9A English. Just so you're aware, you can create projects in both a course and on a class, so it doesn't really matter where you do that. You can do it in either. So here's my course outline that you're all familiar with. Note how much simpler the layout looks without the buttons now. You just got a little modifier down the bottom, getting out of the way. Also note while I'm here, the components that allow you to drag onto them, such as video components, now let you know that you can drag onto them. So it's no surprise now. It used to be you'd only find that out when you actually picked up a file and dragged it over the page. Well, now we let people know that you can actually drag and drop onto certain components. So just add that into my list, tick that one off. So while I'm here, I'm going to create a project. Okay. So a project really is a container for more assessments. It's not much more complex than that. So I'm going to call this a quick project. It's got a description, it's got a weighting, so it has a weighting within the class, within that unit. It has a visibility, so who can see the marks and the results, dates. Now this is probably the most interesting one. This is the summation of the marks within the assessment. So what happens here is that when you create a project, we roll up all the marks of all the assessments within the project and then give the project a grade. And we do that using a summation method, and you've got control over what summation method you can use. And so you can think of different strategies, different teaching and learning strategies that might use different summation methods. So a weighted average, you might have one part worth 10%, one part worth 20%, and one part worth 70%. With a maximum, you might say that there's 3 different ways to do this project, and the highest mark out of those 3 different ways is what you get for the project. So you could use that for differentiation. You might give the students 3 different ways to do a task. They choose which way they want to do it, and then the mark for the project is just the mark they got for the best result out of all 3 that they did. So they probably only did 1, but they get that mark. So there's different options there for how you summate that mark. It gives you a bit more flexibility with how you sort of bring those assessments together. And of course, a project can have different marking systems, so percentage or letter grade. So that'll be the overall mark for that project. And of course, none if you choose not to mark the project as a whole. Once I've set up that project, I'm able to create tasks within it. So that project there has the ability to add additional activities. So here I can see the students that are involved in this project. And the idea here is that in the future, this list will become manageable. So you'll be able to add and remove students from this project, giving you the ability to individualize content. At the moment, it's a static list based on your class list, but the intention is that that will become dynamic in a future update as well. So I can create an activity here, and an activity could be one of due work, task, or quiz. So you remember all of these activities that we've previously had lots of buttons to create. They've all been simplified into this interface. So I'm going to start with a task. Prepare with a project team meeting. And of course, we've got dates, attach files, but this is just a task, remember, so this isn't being assessed. It's just a step that they need to take. And then we have a quiz. I'm not going to go through building a quiz just at the moment. And we'll do due work. And just quickly create that. Okay, so I did that really quickly, but I hope you all know how to build tasks, quizzes, and due work by now, so I didn't really want to spend too much time doing that. What I wanted to show to you is that the new project screen now is a thing in itself. So here we've got a description of the activities that are going to be undertaken in the project. I can actually put an overview of this project, so this is information about the project as a whole. I should get my spelling right. So now I've got a project page. I can put videos in there. I could have a whole lot of content in there, and then a series of tasks and activities that I can sequence and get students to do in the order that I want them to do it as part of that project. So I've built a whole container there of things for students to do all around that project. Now, we've kept it fairly loose in how you actually use this, so we hope that you can make incredible use of that new container, put together things in your style and your pedagogy, use it the way you think it should be best practice for your school. But I think it gives a lot of new opportunities for assessment and for assignment of work to students. Okay, let's move on now. There's a few new things about courses that I should quickly just touch on. When you are importing a course now, one of the things that used to be problematic is that teachers would come along and go, I need to build a course. Let's put a course builder on my class page. But of course, everyone should know that you're not able to build a course on an existing class, so you can't actually do that anymore. So you can't use the course builder on your class page. It doesn't let you do anything. So that's a dead end. Probably eventually we'll also remove the component from here as well, so that you won't actually be able to drag and drop it as well in the future. This page has a manage courses area. And here we've got lots of information about the courses that have been imported. So sometimes it's hard to work out what's been going on with your courses. Like, have I imported this course? Have I deleted this course? Why isn't it showing? Where is it? What's going on? And so this course management area allows you to look at your class and say, what's happening with the courses here? Because you can import multiple courses onto a single class. And so this screen here gives you the ability to actually manage those courses. And of course, we can then import more. So we can choose a new course to import. I'm not going to go through the whole process now, but of course I can start that process of importing this to my class. Okay, now for those of you that like to push out your courses to multiple classes in one, now on the actual courses page, if you press on the option here, you can import into classes. So you can go to the course, import into classes, and just list the classes you want to push it out to. Okay. One thing that's gone, that's no longer really there, is the old progress report. Now, the progress report sort of was originally developed to track the progress of students with tasks, and then we add assessments into it, and so then it sort of became like a mark book, but with tasks in it. And so now with the rebuild, we've merged the mark book and the tasks into one system. So if we're on our classes area, or from the top nav there, I can now bring up the mark book. And the mark book's been updated to fully integrate the tasks, activities, the marks, everything's now visible through the mark book. We're going to do a lot more with this. This is probably one of our areas that needs the most work after this release. We think that there's a lot more we can do here with filtering, sorting, those types of things, so you can get a really good picture of where there's struggling students, what things you need to look at. We've got lots of ideas of how we can take this mark book to the next level. But yeah, just so you know, the old progress report has been deprecated and folded into one page, the mark book, so you can see everything here now in one place. All right, let's move on now to the pastoral system. The pastoral system has had some changes to it. I'll just quickly look up a student. Sorry about that. One of the changes was, one of the most often requested features was being able to pull up a report on a year level. So being able to search for students in a particular year level and return a report on all of the particular incidents for that particular year level. So that's been added in. We've also added in the ability to sort that said report. So if you want to sort it by date or by name or by type, you can now change the sort order of that report through here as well. So now you've got options on all of those. So there's additional report functionality. When we're creating an event, we've added a new field, points, so you can add points in if you're using points for different things, for awards, maybe for discipline issues, and for how you add those up, the points are now included there as well. So just some small tweaks from feedback from users. What else have we got? Resource booking. Resource booking systems had some improvements. While I'm talking resource booking, one of the improvements that is similar to that is the ability now to export some additional items from the calendar. So now you can export events by type. So you can actually export, for example, all the exam dates or all the term dates or holiday dates, and have that as a subscription feed. So you can actually subscribe to certain things. You can also subscribe to your resource booking calendar here. So if you've made a whole lot of bookings and you want to see them in another calendar, you can subscribe to them via this system as well. In the actual resource booking system, we now have the ability to, say, for example, looking at venues, I'm able to export the list of venues as a VCal feed. So here I can export all of the bookings made for a particular category. I can also go into a particular resource, say, for example, a meeting room, the boardroom meeting. It's not working for me. And I can export just the boardroom meeting as well. So if you've got a particular room and you want to subscribe to that calendar so you can track it in your Outlook or something like that, you can now get access to the resource bookings in your third-party calendaring program as well. All right. getting towards the end of my list, just quickly to go through some new components that have been added into the system. So we just go to a demo class here. All right. So some new components that are now available. I've already talked about most of them, but I just want to go through quickly. There is a new tasks component, which allows you to create tasks just on your class page. So we don't really know what this might be used for, but we could do it really easily. So we did. Maybe a to-do list, maybe some quick activities, stuff that you're not going to assess. It might be really useful down in the junior school. But there's now a task list creator. It uses the same thing as tasks normally, so you can mark them as complete. Students can self-mark themselves as doing the tasks. Really great way to track student engagement with your page. So really simple, really basic, but of course it's not the full course outline functionality, but it's just a really basic way to get access to the task functionality without needing a whole course. We talked about the LTI under multimedia. Embed learning tool is there. That's the LTI component. So that's where you'll find all of that. Under information, we've got the sports fixtures component. Now, the way the sports fixtures component works is that when you set it up, you search for the team. I think we had Raiders before. Maybe it was Warriors. Maybe I can't find anything. Well, that one's not going to work for me. I'll just explain what it's going to do. Maybe I'll have to log a bug after this. This one here is going to list all of the team's games coming up for that particular team. So what we imagine you'd use this component for is, say you had a tennis team page, you could put their fixture on their page. You can use this component multiple times. So if you had the Year 9 tennis page, you could put each team's fixture on the page. So you could actually have all the fixtures there. This component here can do both historical and future only. If it's showing historical, it's going to show results. So it'll show the whole season and all the results that are currently available for that area. Okay. And while I'm here, obviously you can see lots of new empty states. You can drag onto this component, so they're now telling you what you can do with this. So here, for those that don't know, you can drag multiple files onto that component. And one last thing, for all those that have been asking, and I know you've been asking for a long time for improvements to the homepage statistics, we've now updated the homepage statistics page. What that means is that you can get much more detailed information about the page. This is not a good example because I'm the only visitor. Let's go all the way back. No? Too far back. So this will now show for the top visitors, top files, yet to visit, top links, recent visitors. It'll now show view more buttons. So if there's more data than we can show on the page, it will actually show the full list of people. It'll be in a table, so you can sort it. You could do all sorts of things. But yeah, all the statistics are now included, so you can actually drill down and see more detail if necessary, if you need to get down into that particular area. Okay, I think that about wraps up all of my stuff to show you today. I've got through it pretty quickly. What's the time? Great timing, perfect timing. So now I'd like to open it up to you to start asking me some questions. I'll just pick out some questions from the list. You can type them into the system. I'll go through and answer any questions that you might have. So fire away with your questions and I'll go through them. So just having a look through, browsing through all these questions. Mary Lou asks, has the online training modules been updated to reflect these changes as we have all our staff about to start the online modules? The online training hasn't yet been updated, mainly because the teachers won't yet have access to this version. We're planning to be updating that documentation over the summer break. So we would expect to start seeing some of the changes rolling out over summer, and early in the new year they'll be there and available. So that will happen over the sort of next 3 or 4 months. You'll start to see those changes happen. Some things don't need any changing, some things do. There's a few bits and pieces that will need updating, but the main core concepts are still the same. I think the only really big changes for teachers will be the appending assessments page and the new sort of online grading sort of workflow. It's a bit different in there, but fundamentally the course building process is fairly much the same, except now you have additional projects that you can build as well. Okay, let's have a look for the next question. Anthony asks, does this mean you can actually see events per term? So for Anthony, if you wanted to see events per term, we have a list view. So obviously on the month view, week view and day view, they're very specific periods of time. But if you want to define your own periods of time, you can go via the list view and you can set any period of time you want to see events. So just be aware that if you want to see term dates, term might have sort of been, I guess, around September the 1st through to this month. You can then update that and see exactly what happened during that term. Obviously, applying filters to that, because it becomes quite a big list, is a good way to get just the main things that you want to see for that particular term. Sam Bailey from our support desk, one of our staff members, has asked me to mention about setting up terms for 2017. It's an important point for those that are coming into the rollover. Just be aware that there's a couple of rollover tasks that you need to put in your calendar. One of those is creating your new class pages for 2017. The other is setting up your terms for 2017. So during the year in version 16, we actually added a new feature called terms. And what that means is that now you need to set up your own terms for Schoolbox to roll over into. So in here, you'll find that there is terms that you can define. So make sure you've got either semester 1 and 2 defined for next year, or you've defined a 2017 year. What this really changes is the views that you have on your mark book. So if you don't have one, you'll just be in last year. You'll just see the mark book for last year as well. So make sure you do roll over into a new term, create that new term in there for next year. So thanks, Sam, for that question. Lee asks, can we move tasks, due works, etc. that have been previously created into a project? It's a great question. Currently you cannot, but it is something we are well aware that would be very valuable. We'll have a look at trying to get that in before the release. No guarantees, but I agree that it's something that would definitely be valuable and certainly help with migration. But at the moment it's not possible. There's no way to sort of see both in the same plane, so we need to work on a way to do that that's, I guess, easy for users to understand. All right. Tim Barlow asks, can sports fixture data be automatically populated from Synergetic? Currently, the answer to that is no. The original intention was that it would be populated via SIS, but we haven't actually got a good way to do that at the moment, and certainly not dynamic. So you can import the class lists using the bulk importer, but there's no dynamic way to maintain those class lists between your SIS, Synergetic, and Schoolbox. But that is something we would definitely interested in investigating down the track. We just ran out of time with this release to get that in there, but it's still on the list of things to do. Okay, keep looking, keep looking. Andrew Noble says, when copying courses to classes, does it list archived classes as options? Yeah, so Andrew, I guess the question comes from when you're importing a course into classes, you get to do a little quick search here. So you can type in the word English, and that brings up a whole lot of matches. And obviously, we haven't locked it down, so the only place where you can import a course is to an active class. We want it to be a bit more open than that. So you could use courses in groups, for staff PD, all sorts of contexts outside of the classroom. So we haven't locked it down. Now, what that means is that sometimes when you're searching here, you see archived classes. Now, to prevent that, you can, of course, change the permissions and stop users who are importing classes from seeing archived classes. So there's a couple of options there, but yes, it's still going to show up archived classes because we didn't want to lock it down so that the only place you could import a course to was a class. We wanted a bit more flexibility than that. Andrew Greenlee asks, can we do UPS based on class memberships for parents and students? So Andrew, great question. Currently that's not available, but I will talk to you after this about that. I do still want to do that, but we haven't done that at this stage. I think we can work out a way to solve that issue. But just for those that don't know what that is, in the UPS system, currently you can manage group membership based on a whole lot of parameters of users, but one of the missing ones is what classes they're enrolled in. So when we actually get all the data from the SIS about when we're doing user provisioning, we don't get the classes that they're enrolled in. So Andrew's asking, can we also include the classes they're enrolled in so that he can write rules so that they can be added to groups based on those rules? It's not something we have at the moment, and something that a few people are asking for. So I'll talk to you later about that, Andrew. Leo O'Brien asks, can we personalize the help desk in the empty components? Great question. Yeah, so we're looking at adding in the ability to customize the text box empty state. That's one we've identified that really could benefit because it's such a free-form component and it can be used for all sorts of things. The idea was that when you went to the dashboard, the template area, for example, and if I was in the admin system and I was setting up homepage templates, and say, for example, I was building a course page, and I wanted them to put a course outline onto this. Right now, all they get is a text box with nothing in it. It's pretty boring. Doesn't really tell them what they should or shouldn't do for this component. So what we've done is we've added a heading, and we're also going to add an empty state config here. So you'll be able to type course overview, and then you'll be able to type, please fill in details about blah, 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 and you'll get that information. Whenever someone goes to create a course page, they can get all of that empty state set up, communicating them exactly what they should be doing with that text box rather than just getting a blank text box. Some of the other components, we think it's probably better we handle it because there's quite a bit of logic behind some of them, but the text box is definitely one we're going to allow you to personalize the empty state for, just because it's could be used for anything. So the empty state really is up to you what you want them to do with that component. Mary Books asks, is there a way to hide timetables from students? Yes, there is. This has been available for a while now, but for those that don't know, and it's this time of year that we always get all these questions about how do I hide the timetable from users. So this is actually already out there. We don't need 16.5 for this. It's actually in 16.0 already. But if you look up a student, say Jana Reed here, you can actually modify and tick hide timetable. So that'll hide the timetable from the student. If you want to do that on bulk and do it for all students, you just go through the bulk modify, search for all the students, and then you can apply hide timetable for all the students. So I know lots of you out there always get the request at this time of year. Yeah, we loaded the timetable in, but we didn't actually want anyone to see the timetable. So if you go and set hide timetable, it'll prevent Schoolbox from showing the timetable until you untick that setting. Okay, just having a look through for some more questions. Come on. There's lots of congratulations. That's great. Thanks for all the feedback. It's great to have all the people congratulating us. David Howard, what is the new Schoolbox font? I think you must have missed it earlier, but what you're seeing here is actually the Mac system font for Schoolbox. So I think it's called Sequoia or something like that in Mac. But yeah, we're using the latest system fonts in the browser. So if you're on a Mac, you're going to get the best Mac font. If you're on an Android, you're going to get the best Android font. If you're on a iOS device, you're going to get the best iOS device font. So yeah, the fonts have been changed, but they're device specific. So you get the best font for the device that you're on. Okay. All right, I got another question. One of the developers wants me to show the import go back a step function. So one of the things that we got feedback on was the import process with the courses. So when I'm actually, not new course, import course, when I'm actually importing a course into classes, we've added this new control here, and we call this the stopping all stations railroad. And each of these is a step through the wizard of importing a course. So I can start by putting in my demo class here and go next. And you'll see it take me one step further. So with these, I can actually always go back. If I do want to go back, it will prompt me to say, well, you're about to lose some data. Are you sure you want to go back? But yes, I can go back. So we can jump backwards and forwards through the process and go backwards and forwards as I'm going through the setup. So just be aware now that a bit more user-friendly. If you get something wrong at the start of the import process, don't worry, you can always go back. You don't have to go back and restart the whole process again. You can just go back to the step you need to. So thanks, Matt, for that question. Okay, keep looking for questions. So Simon Thompson asks, is it possible to customize class teachers components so the teachers appear as title, last name, and their class list component showed their students as first name, last name? No, what you probably could do though is when you do your provisioning into the system, just don't give teachers a first name and then it'll just be title, last name. So just don't populate the first name field and your teachers will get title, last name as whatever they're displayed as in Schoolbox. So for those that are wondering how to make it just Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones, just don't populate the first name for the staff member. It's that simple. Okay, keep looking. Mary Lou says, when you hide the timetable, students could still go to the student profile and find it there. Is that still the case? It shouldn't be. If it is, let me know and we'll fix it as a bug. the hide timetable feature should hide it from everywhere, not just the navigation. Just note that in 16.5, hiding the timetable will be even easier because you'll be able to remove all the links to the subjects and everything from the side nav and control all of that as well. So you have even more control over what information you show to people and when. You'll be able to turn things on and off as necessary in 16.5. Okay, Dimitra asks, if Projects is not yet able to assign to individual students, what element is new for personalised learning? Okay, so it's a good question. So when we looked at personalised learning, there's actually two forms of personalised learning. There's both individualisation and differentiation. Individualisation is where a teacher says, you're going to do this, and differentiation is where the teacher says, here are 3 different ways you can demonstrate your knowledge. The Projects gives you the ability to do differentiation right now. So right now you can create a project, put 3 different options for assessment into that project, and tell the students that they can choose whichever 3 options they want. One might be produce a video, one might be an essay, and one might be a graphic or a video game or something like that. Students can choose which way they're going to demonstrate their knowledge, really allowing them to personalise their learning to the skills that they have, but also still demonstrating their knowledge. When you go to mark that, you'll mark the students in each of the one that they submitted, but because you've got the project container around that, the project mark will take the mark from the one that they did. So the overall project will still be marked based on the assessment, one of the 3 assessments that they did. So differentiation is possible, individualisation is not possible, but we do plan to add individualisation in the future so that you can assign tasks to specific individuals. We just ran out of time with this release. We're already late, we wanted to get it out, so that was one of the things that we dropped off the list, but it will be something we do later next year as well. Trevor asks, will there be an undelete for components, files, etc.? Components you can always undelete. For those that don't know, components actually are always recoverable. They actually don't delete anything. So if you remove a component from a page, you can just add it back to the page and everything will still be there. It never deletes anything when you remove a component. For files, we really do want a recycle bin. It's something that the support guys will jump up and down when I talk about. It's something that we obviously undelete things for people all the time, but it's something that should be built into the system, and it's certainly on the list for next year. So yeah, there will be a recycle bin coming. At the moment, there's nothing in the system that can do that. All right, I'm getting to the end of my questions. I've got one question left from Lee. You mentioned about importing courses to archived classes. Could you explain how we can lock down archived classes to prevent teachers importing classes to last year's class? Okay, so what I would do if I wanted to really lock down those archives is take permission, read permission away from, or write permission away from those classes. You can't import a course to a class you can't write to. So if you archive your classes, and if you can imagine me doing this process now, you've come rollover time and you're gonna archive 2016. You come in here, you go modify, and you go, well, you guys don't need access to this anymore, set read and write, and depending on how you've set up your permissions, apply these permissions to all subfolders. That will then go through the entire 2016 classes area and take write away from teachers. That'll stop them from being able to import courses to this archive any further. They won't be able to make any changes to the archive, which is a good thing. They'll only be able to go in there, read it, see things that they did last year, copy them out if they want to, but they won't be able to write things into there. Does that make sense? Hope that helps with your rollover process. Okay. A few more questions. I've sparked a bit more interest. Okay, excellent. Morik asks, can we currently get summaries of assessment data in the system, grade ranges across a cohort, etc.? So this is currently available via the Learning Analytics feature. you will notice that that's probably not working right now. We're going to be getting that working before we go live. So learning analytics is a known issue that's not functioning with all the changes we made to projects. That will be restored and functional before we go live. But the learning analytics page provides assessment data across cohorts, across courses. So any classes that share the same course, we're able to link them together and then give you analytics across the entire course. And that's generally a cohort. Ashley asks, how is the Fixtures feature licensed? It will be part of the Elite package for those that want to know. We're doing some discussions now about some licensing changes for next year. They haven't all been decided yet, but there's no doubt that Fixtures will be available to all Elite customers. So that's where that will be licensed. Oh, Matthew Samble. Mass asked me about a feature that I've forgotten to demonstrate. So when you are importing a course, and I got to the railroad, actually need to put in a class. I think this one's when we go import a unit, we set the dates. Previously, when you went to import a course, it would just import everything. Now you can optionally turn things off. So if you want to put a whole lot of extra stuff into the course and then teachers can pick and choose which bits they get, now they can. So they can actually pick the bits that they want to import so that you can give them options, and the teachers, while they're importing, can actually choose which options they want to import. So they don't have to take everything from the course now. So if there's something they're going to do a bit different, they can just leave that one off and put their customization on their class page when they're importing. Thanks, Matt, for reminding me of the features I've forgotten. Okay, Tani, is there a way a teacher can copy a web page or document in SB instead of recreating or re-uploading the same web page document? No, not particularly. There's not a good way to copy HTML documents. One of the and documents in general, just I get this question a lot about why don't we allow copying in Schoolbox? Why can't we just copy things from one place to another, or take one page and duplicate it? Generally, we think that that's always a bad idea. There's very few good reasons for copying data because what you end up with is many duplicates of the same data, and then you never know which one's the right one, which one's more accurate, which one's more up to date, which version should I be using, because there's so many duplicates. So what we try and do is encourage people to have one copy and then link to that copy many times. So if they want to use it multiple times, they just link to it rather than copying it many times. So if you've got a document or something that you want to use multiple times, you link to that document many times rather than to copy it. Does that sort of help make sense? Okay, I think that's all my questions. No other questions? I think it's about time to wrap up. I've gone now a good amount of time. Thank you everyone for coming along. I hope you learn a lot about what's in this new release. We'll certainly be working hard to wrap up any bugs and issues that are still remaining. If you've got any problems out there, please let us know. Please send them in through the support desk. We definitely want to hear if you've got any issues, in particular with your data or customizations. All those people out there who have built customizations on top of our system, specifically on the LMS area, you're definitely going to need to spend this time to have a look at how they're functioning. There's no doubt that there's been big changes to the database schema, so if you've got customizations, please start looking at them. Please start checking out whether they're still working, and if they need updates, let us know what needs to happen. So please get in contact. But that's all for now. I hope you all have a great Christmas and a great New Year. We'll be all taking a bit of a break over the summer break. We'll be pretty much around from the 23rd till the 3rd. Or we'll be off from the 23rd to the 3rd, and we'll be back on site from then on, and we hope to hear from you in the new year. So thank you very much to everyone for your time, and I'll speak to you all soon.